What would they hate most about being men? Story 1. I'm 6'1", 265 pounds, brown, bald. No one has sat next to me on the bus in years. A child refused to sit next to me on a flight once and threw a tantrum about it. I ignored her the entire time, but oof, that hurt. I cried watching Coco. Yeah, recently a crying lost child came up to me at the store and grabbed onto my leg. Before I could even react to this, the mother came around the aisle and screamed at me, "Leave my baby alone!" as if I'd done something. The looks I got from the other shoppers, I genuinely feared a vigilante mob awaiting me as I left for literally nothing. People are harsh. Oof, I had something similar happen to me in an apartment complex. I was moving laundry on site and found a 6-year-old crying and walking through the parking lot around 10 p.m. Poor kid had his mother flip on him and told him to walk to his dad's, wherever the heck that was. He had no shoes and was sobbing with his blankie. As I was comforting him, his mom obviously came to her senses and came storming and screaming at me. Luckily, I had asked the kid what apartment he was from and sent the cops over there. Still think about that boy sometimes. I'll never forget the feeling of a loss of innocence when I was around 17 and a woman grabbed her kid as I was walking towards my car. It looked like I was walking towards the kid, who was in the general trajectory of the parking lot, and it dawned on me, oh, I'm no longer seen as a child. I'm a potential threat now. It was such a weird feeling. I had a similar thing around the same age, but mine was me taking my much younger sister to the playground near our house. I was around 17 and she was about 5. She had 3 to 4 different parents go up to her asking, "Who is that man with you?" Or, "Is that man your dad?" That second one led to a small panic for one woman when my sister responded no. I would also get questions directed at me, or occasionally people making comments like, "Oh, is dad babysitting today?" After hearing that multiple times on multiple trips, I eventually told one woman, I'm her brother, not her dad, but even if I was her dad, it's not babysitting, it's called parenting. It was a simultaneous loss of innocence, as you described, but also a feeling of sadness that it is apparently so uncommon for dads to do something like take their daughter to the park by themselves, that all the parents were so worried. I'm reading your comment as a woman who smiles at everyone and strikes up conversations with cashiers, etc. Everyone always smiles back and engages. I am now imagining myself as a 6'1", 265 pounds man, and if I acted exactly the same, I have a bad feeling men would think I'm weird and judge me while women would be afraid. The idea of feeling so isolated just being myself and reaching out to people is killing me. I suddenly understand why the men in my life feel so alone. Damn. I'm so sorry. I'm a woman who loves to sit at bars and strike up convos, albeit usually not alone, but with my parents. We're close. Or friends. Last May, I was at a bar at a Four Seasons hotel when this guy sat next to me and started talking. He was clearly a little drunk and I got a bit on guard at first, but kept talking and he just shot the shot with me and my mom. Talked about retiring early, having money and going to the Met Gala with a woman he never met because it was paid for. Long story short, he was rich AF, but also lonely AF. He just wanted someone to talk to and have a decent conversation. We talked for about an hour about work, travel, the hotel, just about whatever. As we went to leave, he shook our hands and said, "Thank you. You guys are nice people." I still think about that from both sides. One, no amount of money is worth being that lonely, but also, I felt bad I got my shields up at the bar when he legit just wanted to talk. Story 2. Being treated like a second-rate parent even if you're the only parent. While signing up for a daycare, I told them to call me first if our kids got sick. They said, "We usually call the mom first," with a confirming look towards my wife. I told them I was 5 minutes away and my wife is a teacher, so if they want to waste their time calling my wife first, go ahead, but I'll be and am usually the one to pick them up. They still call my wife first. The flip side has been that sometimes I'm just chilling with my kids at the park and get told I'm the best dad ever. Like I'm doing the bare minimum right now, ma'am. This is the floor of what I should be praised for, not the ceiling. Basically, the public is crazy. I noticed this when I had custody of the kids after we separated. I was a freaking hero for attempting what millions of single moms have been doing forever. And it was in the eyes of women. Most men didn't care or notice that my status was elevated while many of them were looking down their noses at the single moms. Double standard for sure. Like the women I work with telling me I should give my wife a night out because she's earned some time for her, like I'm not the one making dinner, dropping them off at school, picking them up from school, going to their school functions because I have the more accommodating schedule, and being the nighttime parent because my wife works on call sometimes. And if I point that out and I'm like, what about some me time? And they retorted with, what, you want an award for being a parent? This. We took our son to his 18-month checkup. The doctor gave us the little form to fill out for his progression, with hitting his milestones and everything. I started filling it out and asked my wife a super simple question about it. There was one thing that I hadn't seen him do, so I asked my wife if she had. The doctor said, "Sorry, Dad, but we really prefer to have Mom fill these out." Fun fact, she also hadn't seen him do it. How dare I double-check before I answer the question? This seems to happen to men when they're handling errands involving the kids, like the doctor's office, but at least where I live, men are praised by people just for doing the bare minimum, like taking care of the kid while mom isn't home or available. It's rather sad. But then, when I worked for the ER, I had to deal with a lot of dads who didn't know a thing about their kids. Inevitably, I would have to call the mom most of the time and register the kid with her over the phone. I had to fight the instinct to just assume the dad didn't know anything. When I did get those dads that could register their kids, though, I wanted to hug them. They were some of the most organized and informed parents. They always had a smooth registration, quick on the uptake, they either had all of the information or cards I needed, or they could find it and get it to me quickly. Story 3. Crying in front of people has the exact opposite effect. I had been told straight to my face by a woman that I had already been really hitting it off with, that my emotional vulnerability was unattractive, and I don't think we're a good fit. We had already made out multiple times, and she told me several times during those encounters that she is so attracted to me she can barely stand it. She shared about a previous abusive cheating partner, and afterward I shared about a similar experience that I had had and teared up while telling the story. I'm sorry that you had to experience this, and I hope you find someone you can be comfortable and vulnerable with. There have been a handful of times that I've cried while my wife, then girlfriend, held me and consoled me, and I'm sure there will be more in the future, especially as parents pass. Reading threads like this one make me forever grateful for her. Did that a few times, nothing crazy, just a bit of tearing up. Most gave little to no support, and you could tell it gave them the ick. You can see it in their face in real time as any attraction and respect for you evaporates and is replaced with revulsion. I'm sure there are supportive women out there, but I can't trust those odds. Even people you'd think would, and usually do, surprise you. Better to just never change it now, would rather be intentionally alone with any sadness, or TW close friends, than lose someone I care about when they're otherwise great. As a feminine person, when I cry, it's only ever led to the situation getting much worse for me. Usually the person making me cry gets mad that I'm crying due to them torturing me. I don't cry in front of other people anymore. It's a sign of weakness and vulnerability, and that gives people the ability to hurt me more. If I cry because someone hurt me, I am called manipulative. I haven't cried in front of another person in over a decade. As a result of the abuse I've experienced, I can cry completely silently. No one can tell I am crying unless they are looking directly at my face. My breathing doesn't even change. On the plus side, this awful talent has come in handy the few times I have felt moved to tears in a movie theater. I will always cry if a dog dies. I think society inherently treats crying as a form of weakness regardless of gender, and weakness is something to exploit or to be ashamed of. But I do recognize that men have an unfair expectation of stoicness and strength thrust upon them, which would make the consequence of crying more dire. Yup, when I got the call that my dad's cancer had spread to his brain and was terminal, I was at work and started to cry. It wasn't a sob or an ugly cry at all, and I was trying to keep it together. Once my coworkers in the office noticed, they just quietly got up and walked into another room without saying anything. I tried to focus on my work and pull it together, but after about 3 minutes I was literally alone in the room. It was an open concept kind of office, and there were about 15 to 18 desks in the room. Nobody said anything. Nobody asked if I was okay. They just got up. About 15 minutes later, the office manager asked if I needed to leave for the day because I was making other people uncomfortable. I heard at least one group of people joking about it on my way out. I ended up quitting a couple of months later because everybody treated me completely differently afterward. I went from being the funny guy at work to the weird guy who cried at work. Receiving devastating news like that is very confronting for you, and crying is a natural reaction. Unfortunately, many people just don't know how to respond, and from personal experience, they often just ignore the situation altogether. As a female, when I see men cry, I think it's a healthy way for them to express their emotions. Sometimes it's happy tears, sometimes it's sad tears. Either way, they are being authentic, and it says more about others than it does about you if you shed tears and they treat you poorly. I hope you have found a more compassionate place to work. Story 4. People think that you're a pervert when you're watching your own kid at the park. When my son was in diapers, I lived in Germany and often ventured around other parts of Europe. No freaking changing tables anywhere in men's restrooms. So frustrating when you're just, trying to be a dad and take care of your poopy child. I moved back to the US when my daughter was 3 months old, and holy crap, it is so much better here for that. A couple of years ago, I realized that playing hide and seek with my kids makes me look super perverted. Years ago, I was playing hide and seek with my girlfriend at the time's little brothers and sisters. I was hiding in the nature strip, peeking over the fence into the yard, and was basically an adult, and the kids were around 4 to 7. Looked up and saw a car driving past with a big camera on the roof. Yep, turns out it was this brand new fancy thing called Google freaking Street View. We split up shortly afterward for unrelated reasons, but the picture of me looking like a massive perv was up on Street View for freaking years. It was a tiny rural town where everyone knew everyone. It was not a good look. I don't have any kids, but I've noticed that I have hit the age where if I see a kid doing something funny or silly and I smile at them, their mom will give me a look like I'm some creep. About a year ago, I was at a college homecoming football game, and one of the little kids had a little toy football, and his parents stopped playing catch with him. I only kind of knew the parents. They were friends of my friends, so I started playing catch with them. The mom, I guess, was creeped out by it and told her husband to come over and tell me to stop. The guy literally said, "Just want to make sure you aren't a Sandusky." Like, what the fuck? Just chill out. I went to a used bookstore with my kid when he was 3 to 4 years old. He's just walking around, and we turn the corner and there's this little girl who is like maybe 3 or 4 years old. No parent in sight. I kind of shimmy and check the 2 aisles near us for this kid's parent, and there's not a soul. None. So my kid is interacting with this other stranger kid, and the stranger kid turns to me and is handing me a book, talking to me in a very beginner sentence. "Here, book." And I'm like, "Where's your mom? Where's your dad? Are they here?" The kid is just being a kid. 3 to 4 minutes later, mom comes around the corner and sees me with my kid talking to her kid. She snatches up her kid so fast and turns to me, puts her arm out like to block me from seeing her kid, and says, "Leave my freaking kid alone," while backing up, and tells her kid to not talk to strange men. And she turned down the aisle and was like running away. The panic and terror I felt were horrible. I still get sick to my stomach thinking about it, and then I get so angry as well on the other hand. At me because I felt terror and panic, but also because, lady, how freaking dare you? You left your kid. Where were you? I'm with my kid. I didn't do anything. What was I supposed to do? Pisses me the F off just thinking about it. Story 5. Receding hairlines and baldness. As a woman who hates dealing with her hair in any way and does have thin hair, I think I'd find it easier because it's more socially acceptable to have a shaved head as a man still. I wish I lived in a more progressive place, but where I am, if you're a woman with a shaved head, they'll think you're either in chemo, had a mental breakdown, or you're a lesbian. And some of those will get you terrible service at places and possibly get you beat up. So, you're not wrong. That said, baldness is more acceptable. I remember having a female teacher in middle school who was balding, and I've been so nervous I'll be balding since. My hair is already thin enough that half the time it looks like it is. Some women can pull off completely bald, but that ain't me. It's easier to pull off bald as a guy. Can't say I've ever seen a bald guy and gone, "Ah crap, he cannot make that work," but good on him for trying out the style. Though I'm sure they're out there. It's wild the difference having hair makes. As someone who had long, flowing blonde hair for most of my life and is now bald, it is a world of difference. Women don't even make eye contact with me anymore, and anyone who tries to butter you up by saying women like bald men is a freaking liar because they're also the ones that say, "You're such a great guy," but then never want to date you. In other words, I'm too damn ugly. I go to university and all of the guys have lovely hair. It makes me so envious, and I'm really starting to hate college. I'm also 35, so I'm way older than most college students. At least at my university. I'm like everyone's favorite dad or uncle, but that means literally, and I mean literally, no one is interested in me. I will say this, if you're a guy who's balding and contemplating shaving it all off, just take the plunge. Bald is way better than balding. Helps if you have facial hair though. Story 6. How often they'll be asked to do manual labor. As the dad of the family, here are things that instead of other people fixing, they just tell me about and expect sometimes that stuff to be fixed. Clogged toilet. Apparently only men can hold a plunger. Clogged sink. Only men can snake out a drain. Broken car. Only men can call a mechanic. Spider. Only men can capture spiders. Dog poo on the lawn. Only men can pick up dog poop. Bumps in the night. Only men can walk to their own doom in the middle of the night. My buddy was replacing his roof last summer. He came down for a break from the 95-degree heat and asked his wife why there wasn't anything to eat for lunch. She started to protest, so he took off his tool belt, handed it to her and told her to get up there and finish patching the roof while he cooked. She jumped off the couch and silently made him lunch while he iced his feet. At my job, we have a water cooler where the 5-gallon jugs have to be flipped upside down and placed into the machine. So on the overnight shift, we had 4 guys working. Morning shift, as it turned out, was all women that day. We got an email from the boss about not being considerate enough to replace the water jug on the machine with a new one. The old one wasn't empty, but just very low. Still would have given another 2 to 3 cups of water. This used to grind my gears when I was managing nurses. We would get an unruly patient, and instead of calling the people we employed specifically to manage these patients, the female nurses would just call one of the male nurses and dump the patient on him. It was apparently just a fine thing before I started, so it took me a while to change the culture. But I did. My male nurses are not your Clayton's security team. I'm a 21-year-old guy with an invisible but debilitating disability, which I've only within the past year or so been able to regain some aspects of normal life. I'm still in moderate pain or worse for every second of every day, and before I started getting better, it required multiple years of regaining the strength to walk, use stairs, etc. I spent most of 2018 and 2020 going between bedbound and in the hospital. Despite that, I still have friends, some family, neighbors, and even freaking strangers asking for help with carrying things, getting something for them, helping carry groceries, etc. These are usually doable for me unless it's something heavy, but it's always very painful, and I struggle to do any of those things for myself, let alone others. Despite that, whenever I can, I try to put on a smile, help and hide the pain, mostly because I get skepticism and disrespect from people who don't know me if I try to politely decline and explain why. To make it worse, most elderly people and many middle-aged people who I help will make snide comments about my strength, my health, or how I don't know what pain is. That pisses me off because a 50-year-old who's otherwise healthy because of aches and pains of the age, saying I don't know what pain is when every joint in my body is inflamed and slowly bending in the wrong frickin' direction is upsetting. But my misshapen joints are only noticeable with a closer look, and I otherwise am skinny and assumed to look healthy, so they don't care. Many neighbors and even strangers who are older, I'm in New York City, so a ton of neighbors sometimes won't even ask nicely or show gratitude. They'll ask with a sense of entitlement, or like I'm required to help because I'm a young man. 2 months ago, a woman and her daughter, who was around my age, and the mother was middle-aged, were carrying groceries. The older woman stopped me while I was walking my dog. There was a language barrier, so I was unsure of what she was asking until her daughter sighed and said she wants help with her groceries. And the woman immediately jolted some bags in my face to carry. Invisible disabilities, especially when young, really suck. Though to be clear, women with these disabilities also face judgment and discrimination just in different ways. Women, especially younger women with chronic illness, are much more likely to not be believed by doctors or have their pain downplayed by them. So this is far, far from a man's only experience. It's just that the expectation of young men to be obligated to help older people is an aspect that's caused a lot of pain and discomfort for me. Story 7. You may go a year or 10 without a single compliment. Many men are lying in their casket before many good things are ever said about them. I realized this some years ago and tried to change it. I tried complimenting some men, but a lot of them thought I was flirting with them. I wish I could give a man a compliment without interpreting it as I want to sleep with you or I'm attracted to you. They either get creepy or start stammering about their girlfriend or wife as though I'm gonna jump on their neck and wrap my skirt around their heads. Bruh, calm down and say thank you. The end. I asked a buddy how I could compliment a man and avoid being misinterpreted as flirtation. His response was, "You can't. Sorry, we'll always take it that way." It's a bummer. I used to make it a point to compliment a guy at least once a day, but then I was told by other women that I was hitting on these guys and that I shouldn't be doing that because I already have a boyfriend. It's incredibly sad that simply complimenting a man is deemed as flirting or unfaithful. That's not how that works. Men deserve compliments just as much as anyone else. This is a common sentiment among men, and I usually see it in threads like this one. This hasn't really been my experience at all. I get complimented by women for smelling good fairly often. A good quality body wash like Cremo or Method Men, a nice deodorant, and a quality cologne can go a long way. I get that they can be expensive, but you'll really notice the quality when you spend up on these items and they last a good while. Well, maybe not deodorant. Cremo is around $10 a bottle. A nicer Old Spice scent for $6 to $7. People compliment me when I'm wearing Acqua di Gio all the time. And it's only $50 a bottle, and if you're using cologne correctly, it should last you a good amount of time. Have a beard? Rub some beard oil in that bad boy and buy a nice bottle of beard conditioner with a nice scent. I also get complimented for having a good style, somewhat frequently. I don't even do much. It's not like I'm out here buying expensive or particularly nice clothes either. I bought a bunch of glasses on Zenny for $10 to $50 a pair, so I could mix and match with outfits, and that's always met with a good reception and considered stylish. People took notice when I started wearing watches. Nothing fancy, $20 to $80 leather watches that fit my aesthetic. This is another good tip. It looks nice when curated to a degree. People notice when you have an aesthetic and rock it well. Keep your hair and beard well trimmed and look nice. Again, I don't do anything fancy. I've been giving myself buzz cuts since I was 17 and keep my beard short and easily manageable. When it comes to my outfits, I'm just color coordinating most of the time, and that's considered having good style. I'm not really an attractive guy. I'm average by all accounts. My teeth aren't nice, I'm not fit, I'm not tall. My weight fluctuates, and sometimes, like right now, I'm rocking a beer belly dad bod. Damn, I don't even have a good personality. I'm considered pretty funny though. I wasn't always like this, and if these changes helped me get compliments, I think they might be able to help a bunch of other people out there too. Super small, easy changes that had a huge impact. I've also found that women respond well to me not being an uber-masculine macho man type, especially when it comes to being complimented by women you know, whether it be friends or in your workplace. For example, I'm down to be a girly with the women at work. I think it's easier for women to compliment men when they aren't worried he's going to be a creep about it or see it as an invitation to try and sleep with them. I was painting my nails every once in a while last year, and women I didn't know would compliment them all the time. Story 8. Constantly worrying about not looking like a creep. Seriously, stuff like this is exhausting. I'm a 5 foot 10 inches, 225 pound muscular black dude. I know damn well that I'm probably the last person a woman, or anyone for that matter, wants to see walking behind them while they're alone at night. I work in retail too, so there are times when I will walk around the store just to avoid walking behind women just to make them feel better. Just to be clear, I'm not saying that women aren't justified for being wary. I completely understand why they might feel that way. But it just sucks constantly trying to make sure I don't accidentally look like a creep. Thanks for trying. Many of us are constantly worrying about whether or not someone is a creep. It is also exhausting, and the reprieve when someone like you goes out of their way to make us feel safe is such a relief. I hope you get to experience that same relief when people acknowledge that you're not a threat. It sucks that creeps have ruined this for us all. There is no acknowledgement, because the only thing to do to not be seen as a creep or a threat when you're a big dude is to just do your best to not remain in the vicinity. I intentionally just avoid interacting with women for this reason, which I guess is kind of screwed in its own way, but I do it because it makes me feel better too, because it sucks thinking that people around you think you're creepy or dangerous. And it's definitely correlated to attractiveness. I guess ironically, the more attractive I perceive someone, the less likely I will be to engage at all. I'm kinda just realizing how much I've been subconsciously kind of an asshole to attractive females as my own defense mechanism, because I perceive them as being most likely to interpret anything I do as creepy or threatening. It's not that I'm going out of my way to be an asshole, it's more like I find myself overly polite most of the time, so being neutral feels very rude to me. Basically, if it's someone attractive, I'm not holding a door, I'm not going to tell you that you dropped something, and definitely not offering you anything, even if I knew it would be useful or desirable, because it's not worth the risk of getting accused of having ulterior motives. I feel like I need to reflect on this. Story 9. You're screwed if a woman accuses you of some violation. Happened to me at work. I work mostly with women, so everyone turned away without telling me what happened. People didn't want to work with me, were saying they were scared of me, etc. Turns out some old lady said I violated her physically on our night shift. Why did she say that? No idea. Maybe a bad dream? Maybe she's just a bitch? The thing is, I'm gay, and she didn't know that, so it all turned against her, but if I didn't have this go out of jail card, my life would have been ruined. Oh, in case you're wondering, she faced 0 consequences. I had this happen in my marriage. My wife met a man where she worked and ended up having an affair. She wanted a divorce, and instead of telling people she found someone new, she told everyone I beat her. I never did. Try and tell that to people and they look at you like you're lying. Everyone felt sorry for her and I was ostracized. The lengths that I go to protect myself at work are wild. I watched my friend lose everything and had to accept a plea deal. She recanted her story 2 years later, but since he took the deal, his record can't be deleted. If you search his name, you will still find the charges that were filed all these years later, but you damn well won't find anything about her recanting her story. She properly screwed his life with 0 consequences over a lie because she was angry at him. I knew a man who was dating a woman for a long time. One day they got into an argument over money and the woman hit herself with a pipe and said he was beating her. The court took her side and he went to jail. She got a bunch of his money as compensation. 3 years later, a friend of the woman said that she had lied about the beating and the guy's name was cleared. Even though his name was cleared, no one would hire him for a long time. Eventually, a Catholic high school with a second chance policy took him in as an art teacher. To this day, he is the best art teacher I've ever had. Story 10. If you aren't hot or funny or interesting, you will likely be ignored by everyone on the planet that isn't a decent friend or family member. My best friend in college was an elite tier model. He made me realize I wasn't good looking at all and how women interacted so differently with a good looking male. He could do something outlandishly offensive and it was categorized as cute. It also confirmed that women like sex as much as men do, they just don't want to have sex with 95% of the male population. He never went home from a club without a woman unless he simply wanted a good night's sleep. Women literally threw themselves at him in an offensive manner. Women will put a man to shame with their physical and verbal advances towards someone they want to sleep with. I watched a woman walk up to him on a dance floor, put their hand down his pants, grab his junk and say, "That will do," and walk him out the door to take him home. People will say I'm lying about this encounter, but it's 100% truthful. Try being interesting then? Interesting isn't genetic. Find something you like and show some damn passion about it. That British guy on TikTok that loves trains? The one that always wears a face cam? I don't give a flying F about trains, but I'll be damned if I don't always watch his videos when they pop up. His excitement gets me freaking excited about a subject I give exactly 0 Fs about. Not everyone is going to find you interesting, and that's okay, but if you're passionate, you'll eventually cross a few people who either share the same passion or just get excited and want to listen because seeing someone light up when they get a chance to talk about something they love is fantastic. Story 11. Lots of us don't get touched, and we don't get complimented. It hurts. But we are men, and we do not talk about such things. The last time I was touched for more than a few seconds was by my physical therapist. It's been 20 years since I laid in my wife's lap, and she did nothing more than a cursory pat on the head. A lot of men put weight behind compliments when it's actually platonic. I'd like to compliment guys more, but how do I do it without them thinking I'm hitting on them or flirting? Is it like, if you can't change it in a couple of minutes, don't criticize mentality, but for compliments? And we do not talk about such things because when we do talk about such things, we get dogpiled, get told we're not entitled to anything from women, and keep our misogynistic rhetoric to ourselves. And then we're told it's our own fault because we aren't sensitive enough and don't open up enough, usually said by people who are completely oblivious to the fact men get frequently punched in the feelings every time we do open up. They all say they want men to open up, but none of them ever seem to realize they have to make it safe for men to open up first. Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a similar story to these that you would like to share with us, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.